The lives of great saints are always consecrated to the good of many. They descend on earth for no selfish reasons of their own. By knowing and following the path discovered by these great saints, one can live on this earth a life of supreme happiness. One such great saint was Sri Ramanuja, whose life, teachings and philosophy will be of immense benefit to the whole humanity. He was an unparalleled ocean of compassion, with an uncommon renunciation, dispassion, erudition, humility and steadfastness towards his chosen goal. About 1,000 years ago, in a prosperous village called Sri Perumbudur, there lived a pious couple by the name of Acharya and Kantimati. With a desire to invoke the blessing of Sri Parthasarathi so that a child might be born to them, Acharya performed yajna at the banks of the lily lake of Parthasarathi temple at Tiruvallikeni in modern Madras. Pleased with the yajna and the devotion of Acharya couple, the Lord Parthasarathi appeared in their dream and blessed that the Lord himself will be born as their son. About a year later, on Thursday, the 12th Chitra, on the 5th day of the bright fortnight in the year 1017, Kantimati gave birth to a child who came to be known as Sri Ramanuja. This is the holy place of Sri Perumbudur, where Sri Ramanuja was born. It is situated at about 50 kilometers to the southwest of the modern city of Madras. Here, at this temple of Adikeshava Perumal, even today, one can see on one side of the temple courtyard a shrine within which is seated with folded hands the image of Sri Yatiraja, the prince among ascetics, as Ramanuja came to be known in later years. From the very childhood, Sri Ramanuja gave proofs of the prodigious powers of his intellect. As he grew up, his devotional potential too expressed themselves in the form of his great attraction for devotees. During this period, there lived a great devotee by the name of Kanchipurna. He was an embodiment of servitude to God. One day, this great devotee of Lord Varadaraja, while passing through Sri Perumbudur, happened to meet the child Ramanuja. Struck by the devotion of Sri Ramanuja, Kanchipurna could not consider him to be a mere human being. Notwithstanding the fact that Kanchipurna was a man of low caste, Sri Ramanuja used to indulge in long spiritual conversation with Kanchipurna, which both of them enjoyed. Even at this tender age, Sri Ramanuja was very clear in his conviction that caste can be no barrier in acquiring real knowledge from devotees. At the age of 16, Sri Ramanuja was wedded to an exquisitely beautiful girl by name Tanjambal. Sri Ramanuja's parents were happy to see the countenance of the new bride. Soon after, Asuri Keshavacharya left for his heavenly abode, and hence the whole family had to shift to Kanchipuram. At that time, in the same holy city of Kanchipuram, lived a learned and well-renowned scholar by name Yadava Prakasha. Driven by the intense yearning for knowledge, Sri Ramanuja became his disciple. Yadava Prakasha was much pleased with the graceful appearance of his new young disciple and the luster of genius in his countenance. In a very short time, Sri Ramanuja grew to be considered the chief disciple and the great favorite. However, this could not last long. To Sri Ramanuja, who was an embodiment of all devotion and personification of the attitude of service to God, the expositions of Yadava Prakasha on the interpretation of the Upanishads was not pleasing. One day, while teaching Chanda Yoga Upanishad, Yadava Prakasha explained the verse which reads, Tasya yatha kapyasam pundarikam evamakshini. The eyes of the golden Purusha are like two lotuses which are red like the nates of a monkey. Upon hearing this simile, tears started rolling down from the eyes of Sri Ramanuja. Yadava Prakasha wanted to know the reason for this reaction. Sri Ramanuja explained that the word kapyasam, though, could be understood to mean in three different ways, such as the lovely lotus that had just come out of the water, lotus flower standing on its stem, and lotus flower blossomed by the rays of the sun. It would be appropriate to interpret it as the eyes of that Purusha are as lovely as the lotuses blossomed by the rays of the sun. Yadava Prakasha could not, however, accept this. This incident marked the beginning of Yadava Prakasha's dislike towards Sri Ramanuja. With the passage of time, Yadava Prakasha's attitude towards Sri Ramanuja changed considerably. Yadava Prakasha, not able to withstand the growing popularity of Sri Ramanuja and also his clarity of thought and expression, decided to do away with Sri Ramanuja's life under the pretext of going on a pilgrimage to the Bhagirathi river. As planned, Yadava Prakasha, along with his disciples, started on a pilgrimage and reached the foothills of the Vindhya ranges, which was a totally unfrequented place. As Yadava Prakasha was planning to execute his savage task at this place, Govinda, Sri Ramanuja's cousin and a classmate, revealed to Sri Ramanuja all that he knew of the evil designs and made Sri Ramanuja to escape from the pilgrimage group. Sri Ramanuja, fixing his mind on Lord Narayana, hastened his steps through the deep forest southwards. By evening, it became difficult for him to even move an inch due to hunger, thirst, fatigue and exhaustion. Sri Ramanuja forgot the whole world and embraced sleep to remove the pain and exhaustion. The next day, he was woken up by a hunter couple. They familiarized themselves and walked together towards the south as the hunter couple were proceeding to Rameshwaram. The wife of the hunter was feeling tired and thirsty, and hence Sri Ramanuja went to bring her some water from a nearby well. As he came back with the water, the couple had disappeared. Not knowing what to do, Sri Ramanuja looked all around. To his astonishment, he found the tower of a temple. Elated by the sight of the temple, Sri Ramanuja prostrated himself. Upon inquiry, he learnt that the place was none other than Kanchipuram. Recalling the whole sequence of events, it struck Sri Ramanuja that it was only the merciful lords, the divine couple Varadaraja and his consort of Kanchipuram, who had guided and protected him in the guise of the hunter couple. He remembered the hunter's wife asking for water, and hence decided to fetch water for Lord Varadaraja every day. Later, this well came to be known as Sala Kinarid. As days passed, Yadava Prakasha returned to Kanchi along with the rest of his disciples. At the sight of Sri Ramanuja, without giving an expression, he asked Sri Ramanuja to resume his studies with him. Once the princess of Kanchipuram was possessed of Brahmarakshasa. Exorcists were brought from all quarters, but none could cure the princess. With great honor, Yadava Prakasha was also brought for this purpose, as he was adept in Mantra Shastra. At the sight of Yadava Prakasha, the princess burst into laughter and said to him, "I know who you are and what you were in your earlier births. "You do not know my earlier births," and that the Brahma Rakshasa would not leave the princess, as none of them was superior in strength on Mantra Shastra than the Brahma Rakshasa himself. The Brahma Rakshasa, however, expressed that if he has to leave the princess, Sri Ramanuja could alone command him to do that. At the behest of Yadava, Sri Ramanuja was instantly brought there. The Brahma Rakshasa, in order to get out of the princess, wanted Sri Ramanuja to graciously place his blessed feet on the head of the princess. Sri Ramanuja did so and asked the Brahma Rakshasa to quit the princess by showing a proof of having left. At this, the Brahma Rakshasa left the body of the princess, breaking the topmost branch of the neighboring tree. From that day, Sri Ramanuja became famous in the kingdom, which Yadava Prakasha did not like. Sri Ramanuja, even while being a student of Yadava Prakasha, wrote an elaborate interpretation on Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, which occurs in Taittiriya Upanishad. This, in fact, brought him more recognition among the erudite scholars and the elite of the society. Acharya, the great Vaishnava spiritual leader at Srirangam, heard about the great qualities of Sri Ramanuja and developed a desire to meet him. Once he came to Kanchipuram for a darshan of Lord Varadaraja. While on his way back from the darshan and accompanied by Kanchipurna, Acharya saw Sri Ramanuja in the company of his guru. Drawn by his luster and incomparable divine beauty, Acharya felt intensely attracted towards him and prayed to the Lord that through his grace, Ramanuja should become his worthy successor in propagating Vaishnavism. On yet another occasion, Sri Ramanuja could not accept the expositions on certain portions from Chandayoga Upanishad and Kathopanishad. Hence, he expressed his own reflections on these to his guru with due reverence to his knowledge. This acted as the last straw on the guru-disciple relationship of Yadava Prakasha and Sri Ramanuja. In furtherance to the wishes of his guru, Sri Ramanuja, after worshipping him in great humility, took leave of him and went straight to Lord Varadaraja and surrendered at his feet. Sri Ramanuja, as a result of his reverence for Kanchipurna, spent most of his time in discussing various spiritual matters. Later, drawn by the desire to have Kanchipurna as his guru, Sri Ramanuja implored him to take himself as his disciple. Kanchipurna, having known Acharya's inner feelings and prayers to have Sri Ramanuja as his disciple, informed him that the time has now come that he should go and surrender himself to the great soul Sri Acharya at Srirangam. The great saint Acharya asked one of his disciples, Mahapurna, to bring Sri Ramanuja, whom he had earlier blessed, to Srirangam. However, by the time Mahapurna returned to Srirangam along with Sri Ramanuja, Acharya had given up his body. Sri Ramanuja was shocked to hear the news and stood still before the mortal remains of the great soul with his eyes transfixed and kept gazing at the Great One as if the two were exchanging thoughts. Suddenly, he noticed 3 fingers of Acharya's right hand folded and clenched. Upon inquiry, he came to know that the fingers used to remain straight. Sri Ramanuja could immediately understand the reason for the closed fingers and hence declared aloud that, taking into consideration all the interpretations available, he shall write a fair commentary on the Vedas and Brahma Sutras without deviating from their traditional meanings. As an act of gratitude to the great sages Parasara and Vedavyasa, who, out of compassion, wrote gems among Puranas, he would name greatly learned Vaishnava after them, so that the greatness of the sages is always recalled and remembered by the people for a long time to come. As a tribute to the Alvars, he shall arrange a commentary to be written on their hymns to enable the devotees to understand and follow the bhakti path as enshrined in the hymns. No sooner each of this was said, the fingers relaxed one by one and became straight. All were exceedingly amazed to witness this, and it became clear that this young Ramanuja was going to hold the position of Acharya in time to come. Everyone considered Sri Ramanuja as the Ekalavya of Acharya. Sri Ramanuja, quite saddened at heart for not being able to see Acharya alive, returned to Kanchipuram without even having a darshan of Lord Ranganatha and rededicated himself at the feet of Lord Varadaraja. Sri Ramanuja spent most of his time in solitude and found happiness only in the company of Kanchipurna. Sri Ramanuja never considered caste to be a barrier for gaining knowledge. One day, Sri Ramanuja called Kanchipurna for food to his house, with the intent to partake the food left out by him as prasad. Tanjambal, the wife of Sri Ramanuja, was much devoted to her husband and was particular about the observance of traditions and customs. She had been brought up in a family which had been strictly following the family traditions more by practice than by application of reasoning. Kanchipurna, having come to know of Sri Ramanuja's inner desire, fulfilled his word of taking food in his house by carefully avoiding Sri Ramanuja from taking the much-awaited prasad. He requested Tanjambal to serve whatever food she had prepared, and after partaking it, left that house much before the appointed time. Tanjambal, true to the observance of the family traditions, took bath for a second time, cleaned all the vessels, and cooked afresh for her husband. Sri Ramanuja, knowing that Kanchipurna could talk face-to-face with Lord Varadaraja, informed Kanchipurna about the few doubts which were agitating his mind for long. Sri Kanchipurna clarified all his doubts, and as per the command of the Lord Varadaraja, asked Sri Ramanuja to take refuge in Mahapurna, who was a personification of virtues. At Srirangam, the devotees commissioned Mahapurna and his wife to leave for Kanchipuram to bring Sri Ramanuja. As ordained by Lord Varadaraja, Sri Ramanuja proceeded to Srirangam to become the disciple of Mahapurna. To the joy of both, they met each other midway at Madurantakam. This is the place Madurantakam as it looks today. Here at this place, Pancha Samskara Mandapam, Mahapurna initiated Sri Ramanuja into spiritual life. This is the insignia of the discus and conch used by Mahapurna for initiating Sri Ramanuja. Sri Ramanuja returned home with Mahapurna and his wife and requested them to stay in his house. Thereafter, Sri Ramanuja spent most of his time in studying the Prabandhas and Thiruvaimuri with Mahapurna. Tanjambal was, however, not happy at heart, because of her husband's utter indifference towards his household duties, since